These are privileged bureaucrats who were never worried about losing their job. The majority of them took pay raises during the pandemic, and now they want to take an extra $9.3 billion from struggling taxpayers over the next 3 years. It's completely out of touch. I don't think Canadians have any sympathy for these privileged federal bureaucrats.
Since the beginning of Justin Trudeau's reign, the size of the state has expanded. Canada's debt has doubled. New regulations and laws are constantly being passed. The state employees are increasingly being paid, but the population is receiving less service than before, and it has less purchasing power, and they are becoming poorer every day. The Canadian Taxpayer Federation, CTF, is a federally incorporated, not-for-profit citizens group dedicated to lower taxes, less waste, and accountable government. They are investigating extensively to shine light on the overwaste of the government. Recently, one of the CTF journalists, Ryan Thorpe, found out that more than 100,000 federal bureaucrats took home more than $100,000 in salary alone last year. This represents the double of bureaucrats making six-figure salary since 2015. Ryan Thorpe obtained these government documents through an access to information request, which revealed that 102,761 federal bureaucrats receive a six-figure salary in 2022 for a total cost of $13.4 billion. Taxpayers cannot afford more bureaucrats taking six-figure salaries, stated Franco Terrazzano, federal director of the CTF. Franco Terrazzano and the CTF have called on the federal government to implement an annual sunshine list, which will proactively disclose the number of employees earning six-figure salaries. Currently, more than 120,000 federal employees, represented by the Public Service Alliance of Canada, are currently on strike. They are pushing for a compensation increase of up to 47% across 3 years, including a slew of non-wage benefits. We are discussing this deeply with Franco Terrazzano. On May 1st, not only have the government and PSAC reached an agreement for a 12.6% wage increase over 3 years, but the government is offering them a one-time pensionable lump sum payment of $2,500 equal to the wages lost during their strike. Literally, taxpayers have paid for the salaries of the state employees on strike. But this agreement does not include the 35,000 Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, workers whom are still on strike at the moment.
Through an access to information request, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation found that there are 102,000 federal government bureaucrats taking in more than $100,000 in salary in 2022. Okay, so we're paying for more than 100,000 federal bureaucrats with six-figure salaries. Now, even beyond that, we've seen the number of bureaucrats with these six-figure salaries balloon in recent years. There are now 33,000 more bureaucrats with a six-figure salary than there were before the pandemic. Why? Two reasons. Number one, the federal government has been giving pay raises to bureaucrats here, there, and everywhere. The federal government handed out 800,000 pay raises during the pandemic years. Folks, it gave out 800,000 pay raises since 2020. Now there are 400,000 bureaucrats employed by the federal government, okay? There are 400,000 bureaucrats employed by the federal government. That means that many bureaucrats receive not one, but multiple pay raises during the pandemic when their neighbors suffered with pay cuts, with job losses, or even business losses. Reason number two is the federal government just hired more than 31,000 bureaucrats over the past 2 years. So the reason we have all these big bureaucrats making big salaries on the taxpayer dime is because the federal government just dished out more than 800,000 raises and hired tens of thousands of extra bureaucrats.
And so we saw that recently the Canadian agency workers are on strike, and they are claiming for 42% raise over 3 years. Can you explain to the people, if that pass, how much that will cost in total the taxpayer?
It's crazy. It's even worse than that. The PSAC, the government union negotiators, are pushing for up to 47% compensation increase over 3 years. How much would that cost? It would cost taxpayers $9.3 billion, okay? So let's not forget, these are privileged bureaucrats who were never worried about losing their job. The majority of them took pay raises during the pandemic, and now they want to take an extra $9.3 billion from struggling taxpayers over the next 3 years. It's completely out of touch. I don't think Canadians have any sympathy for these privileged federal bureaucrats. Well, isn't that something? The 1 month of the year that we actually want our tax money back at tax refund time, these tax bureaucrats decide to go on strike. The 1 month of the year that they should be working for taxpayers. Now, they call themselves public servants, but who is serving who these days? Okay, so let's make no mistake about it. These union negotiators, their implied threat to taxpayers from day one has been pony up more money that you don't have and you can't afford, or you might not get your own money back at tax refund time. And Alexa, that's extremely cruel when you look at the hardships facing the tax-paying public. We work hard all year to pay our taxes. We deserve to get our money back at tax refund time at a reasonable amount of time. And also, so many people are struggling with the price of gas, with the price of groceries, with rising mortgage payments. So these demands from the union negotiators are completely out of touch. And the fact that they're threatening tax refunds is cruel. Well, it's not just the salaries. You also have to look at the benefits. And that's what we did. We found the union negotiators' list of demands. Let me tell you some of the crazy benefits that they're pushing for. They want to make more money to work past 4 p.m. Now, what do most people call working past 4 p.m.? A normal day on the job. They want taxpayer-funded contributions into the union-controlled social justice fund so they can advocate for progressive public policy. They've already used the social justice fund to send members to climate conferences in Madrid or Cancun and to advocate for higher business taxes. That's just wrong to be using taxpayers' money to advocate on whatever particular policy you want. They also want up to $17,000 in an education fund for laid-off employees. They want 2 weeks of paid time off. They want 4 weeks of vacation after only working 4 years. They want all overtime paid at double time, and they want you, dear taxpayer, to pay for it all.
And what you would answer to someone who say, well, inflation, the salary are increasing. It's normal that now we have more people who have a salary over $100,000.
Well, first of all, let's look at the demands. What does 2 weeks of paid time off and more vacation have to do with inflation? Nothing. It's not about inflation. It's about union negotiators trying to take as much money from their tax-paying neighbors as they can. Now, regarding the Sunshine List, it is true that inflation is going up, right? Everyone feels that every time they go to the grocery store or the gas station. But let's not forget that there are now 33,000 more federal bureaucrats receiving a six-figure salary than there were before the pandemic. That's a huge amount, right? The number of bureaucrats receiving a six-figure salary has increased by 136% since 2015. It has more than doubled since Trudeau took power. So this isn't just about inflation. No, the reason that we have all these bureaucrats making six-figure salaries is because the government just forced taxpayers to hire tens of thousands of new employees and then handed out hundreds of thousands of pay raises. Alexa, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's a baby crying because she knows that she's already on the hook for about $30,000 in federal government debt alone. And you know what? More debt means more money wasted on interest charges. This year, it'll cost taxpayers about $44 billion just to cover the interest charges on the government credit card, right? So that's $44 billion that can't be used to improve healthcare, that can't be used to fill potholes, and that can't be used to stay in our pockets through lower taxes, because that money is going to the bond fund managers on Bay Street just to pay interest on the Trudeau government's debt.
And I was pretty surprised because on your document, you mentioned that only 2 provinces are not giving any information, and one of them is Quebec.
Sure is. The 2 provinces that don't have a sunshine list, well, first of all, a sunshine list is a list that government should publish to show their taxpayers who the high earners in government are. It should be transparency 101. We pay the bills. We deserve to know how many 6-figure bureaucrats we're paying for. The vast majority of provinces have a sunshine list. There are only 2 provinces that don't have a form of a sunshine list, and that's Quebec and Prince Edward Island. The federal government doesn't have a sunshine list either. We had to get all of this information through access to information requests. Well, we're going to stay on it. We're going to file more access to information requests, and if people are interested, you can find all the information at taxpayer.com.
You have many ways to encourage your favorite news, and one of them is going to our store at ribbonnewsstore.com. On this website, you can watch our merch, you can treat yourself with what you like, and in the same time, we pay the shipping, and with my code, Alexa10, you receive 10% off. Thank you.